Welcome back. All right, so I'm doing a panic index a little bit different today. So you'll notice the happy face at the top. I'm going to go ahead and grab this at the bottom. It says, "This sucks big time." So, looks happy, but maybe not so much. I got that one at Hot Topic at, I believe it was at Guildford. So over here, we're going to have teams that are either waiting for the playoffs. So that's what the Stanley Cup means, is waiting for the Stanley Cup playoffs. Not they're going to win the Stanley Cup, they're Stanley Cup contenders, yada, yada, yada. And down here, the me watching the drama unfold magnet, which is Grogu from Mandalorian, that is for teams that are just waiting for the draft already, or waiting and seeing if they're going to get the number one draft pick. Teams that are not in a panic mode. Fans that wouldn't be panicky about the way things are going. But we'll start things off by talking about, let's start with the Kings. So Western Conference, the Kings are going to be right at the top there. Very happy, quite happy with how things are going. No reason to be overly concerned. I don't have them in waiting for playoffs because this feels like it's kind of a magical season for them so far. So then we'll go over to the Eastern side of things. Actually, no, Western. Vegas, I'm going to put next to that Stanley Cup there because, again, they've won the Stanley Cup once. They're trying to win it again. So I'll put Vegas there. Is Columbus in this category yet? Or is Columbus still on the panic side of things? Like, Columbus, it's not really gone the way that they had hoped that it would. So I'm going to put Columbus here because it does feel like they're waiting for, the draft already. We're a quarter of the way into the season. I'm already like, so these teams are going to be waiting for the draft, or these fan bases will be waiting for the draft, but it is what it is. Montreal, I feel like, is in a similar position. I don't think there's a great expectation of Montreal making the playoffs. They're in the mix. I'm not saying they're not in the mix, but I don't think anybody's going to panic if they don't make it. It does feel like the expectation's been set out there that this is a team that's on a journey towards potentially, having more and more prospects and being a really good team later. And fans seem to be willing to be patient and wait in the hopes that that team's going to be a lot better later on. Now, I wanted to go happiness down, but I'm gonna put San Jose down here too because obviously San Jose is in that same position of waiting for the draft. Chicago, right here, that's handy. I would put them in waiting for the draft as well. So, Winnipeg, I'm going to put in the happiness category. Not waiting for the playoffs, but I think things have gone pretty well lately. Not perfect, but I think well enough that I think their fan base would be pretty happy. And yes, I'm trying to rank them. So it's not for this week's anyways. I'm not doing it where it's across lines and all that. So I'm saying the LA Kings fans probably a little bit happier than Winnipeg. Colorado, they have to be in the waiting for the playoffs category right now. Colorado, they've had some ups and some downs, but they do have that feel of a team that is, biding their time. They're winning their share of games. They're still going to have a really high ranking at the end of the season when it comes to where they stand in the West. But it's about what you do in the playoffs more than it is about the regular season for them. Going out east, I really think I should put a team at the top on the East. But then there's a question. So you have Boston. I'm not necessarily putting Boston at the top. Detroit right now, their fans are happy. Patrick Kane's making his debut tonight. Is Carolina happy? Inquiring minds want to know. Rangers, I could put the Rangers at the top. I don't see any reason why I can't put the Rangers at the top of the list here. I think the Rangers and their fans quite happy. I'll say for Boston, much the same. Now, Boston I'm tempted to put over here too, but hey, with the center depth looking like it does with Boston, just looking at the way things are in Boston, I'm not worried about playoffs right now. Just enjoying the good record that they have. Washington's an interesting one, so we'll put that one out there. Philadelphia's an interesting one. Toronto's an interesting one. So I guess we're just going to dive into the East is where I'm leaning with this. Tampa Bay. So Toronto waiting for the playoffs, right? Because, again, it doesn't, and this is the thing, it doesn't matter how they're doing the regulation. It doesn't, all of that stuff is just smoke and mirrors. What we're really concerned with Toronto is, okay, every year since 2018, this is a team that has made the playoffs and not lived up to expectations. I think at times the expectations have been too high, but for Toronto, it really is time to prove that they belong. prove that they're a contender. So I think that Toronto goes over here, whereas the Rangers are Boston and Boston are over here. And again, there's no perfect formula for this. There's no right or wrong answers. You guys can let me know why I'm wrong in the comment section below. That's normally how this works. But remember, don't panic. This is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you're not aware of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, go read them all. All of them. Even the bad ones are good books. So, yeah, even the bad ones. So, have I got all the East up here? No, I do not. We know Buffalo's not going near the top. The Islanders, Ottawa, nope. Pittsburgh, well, I did a video on them today, so you know where Pittsburgh's at, right? So, out west, I might as well just move all the rest over then. Out west. And then we can go through and say, all right, which of these teams are waiting for the playoffs and which of them is waiting for the draft. And if I see one more article asking the question, are the Oilers back? Yes, just stop already. We already get it. We get it. See, I remember Florida's in the East. I got there. All right. So we'll do one from the West first. So we've got LA and Winnipeg. Dallas, I don't see Dallas being in that category right now. But how about Arizona? Come on, Arizona, 5 straight wins against the most recent 5 Stanley Cup winners. That's got to feel pretty darn good, doesn't it? I don't see any reason why Coyotes fans wouldn't be excited about how things are going. So, yeah, we'll put the Coyotes on there. Now, next on the board, I'm asking myself with Dallas, is Dallas in a position where they're waiting for the playoffs? I don't know that anybody else in the West is. So then the question becomes, are all these magnets going to fit this way? Is this going to work? Is this going to be one of those ones where I have to start over and do it differently? I don't think so. Let's do out east first then. So Florida, I think things are pretty good in Florida. I don't see any reason why fans aren't excited in Florida about how things are going. I would say with Detroit, there's a little bit of excitement. There's that Kane guy, whoever he is. He's making his debut with the Wings tonight. So there's some excitement there. You'll notice Carolina's not up there yet. New Jersey, I think that 6-5 win, and Hughes of the Milpalooza, Mania, Hugheskovich, the stuff with all the Hughes brothers. They won that. So I think things are pretty good there. And Philadelphia, let's be honest, Philadelphia was supposed to be in a rebuild this year. So with Philadelphia's most recent victories, I think there's some excitement in Philadelphia. I do. Next on the board, I'll put Washington, even though they've had a couple of recent setbacks. I think there's some excitement there too. Carolina, I'd kind of have to put under there. And then while we're ranking them, this is where it gets difficult. Does Tampa Bay go underneath Carolina? And then I'm tempted to... I'm going to have to push them all up anyways. Now that I've explained it, shouldn't throw people off that I move all these up, right? Unless you just watch the very start of the video and then you skip to the end and be like, whoa, wait a minute. Why did all the magnets get moved up? Well, because, sometimes THG takes a look at space and all that and realizes he doesn't have enough, and so you have to move it all around, Friendly Giant style. And so, yeah, that moves Tampa Bay up. So then you're stuck with these 4 here. Now, the Islanders are 10-7-7. So on the upside, they have 7 regulation losses in 24 games. On the downside, they have 10 wins in 24 games. It is your classic glass half full, glass half empty, or your Schrodinger's cat when it comes to hockey teams. And so it's tough for me to put the Islanders there. Obviously, none of these teams are waiting for the playoffs. I'll put Ottawa next. It feels like Ottawa, there's some optimism in Ottawa. Absolutely. So now what I have to do, because I got 3 teams here that I could make various arguments about, but I don't have room for all those 3 logos. So now I have to take a look at some of these teams up here and say, okay, which ones have equaling levels of enthusiasm right now? I'll put Detroit with Florida, Detroit with Florida, move New Jersey up, Philadelphia up, Washington up, and Carolina. Tampa Bay, Ottawa. Why don't we do this? So why don't we put Ottawa next to Carolina? So Carolina's got a good overall record, right? Things are going relatively well from that perspective. However, goaltending defense, still an issue. Tampa Bay, they've had a couple of wins, but they've had some rough starts too. So cautious optimism, I would think, would be the rule of the day for both Carolina and for Tampa Bay. So does that put them below Ottawa? I'm going to leave Ottawa where they are. Next on the board, I'll put Pittsburgh. I don't know that there's a lot of negativity around Pittsburgh right now. I understand they're 11-11-3 in their power play. I talked about it in a video today, has not been good. But I don't know if the negativity in Pittsburgh's enough to drop them down. So I'm going to have the Islanders here. I'm going to put Buffalo next to the Islanders as well because it feels like both of them have had relatively underwhelming results. Not winning as many games as expected and in a tough position. The Islanders are a team that has kind of gone all in on the veteran look, and so far it hasn't worked out as well for them. A lot of veteran players. Buffalo, on the other hand, there's a lot of young players, and it hasn't worked out as well for them either. So the East, I'm kind of happy with. I'm mildly surprised there are more teams waiting for the playoffs or waiting for the draft. So we'll come out West, and the first thing I'm going to do is take Anaheim and say with their 10-15 record, playoff hopes might be eluding them at this point. So while I have Buffalo here, there has to be at least a little bit of hope. Look, Buffalo can't, I mean, they haven't made the playoffs since 2011. So missing the playoffs again, it feels like shouldn't be a thing. I know, they're trying to make it a thing, aren't they? So I'm going to put the Ducks here. I do feel like with the Ducks that the fans are reasonable, that this team is not playoff level at this time, right? Dallas, I would say Dallas, with everything that Dallas has going for them, I'm going to put them in waiting for the playoffs as well. So that's 3 teams in the East, 1 in the West, or 3 teams in the West, 1 in the East that I see as waiting for the playoffs. So let me go ahead and take the Western Conference magnet, put it up here. I wanted to explain it before I started because I figured that because I had the idea of putting the Western and Eastern at the top, it makes it look like the happiness is in the West and it's not in the East. And I didn't want people to get that impression. So for people to skip to the end, I'll tell them that. But anyways, yeah, for the Coyotes, I have them 3rd on the board because I do think that there's a lot of happiness there. And then you get into the uncertainty. I'm going to say this. The Oilers have won 5 in a row. And while the power rankings board hasn't moved them up that far, comparatively speaking, with where the Edmonton fans might want them to, and I do expect that when the power rankings go live this week, there'll be a lot of, you hate the Oilers, yada, 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 but I like the more gradual climb than the sudden huge jump and then needing to have a huge drop-off. I went through that with Tampa Bay, and yeah, it doesn't feel great. So I do like the more casual, like gradual jump. Plus, I think there's something more satisfying about every week tuning into the power rankings and go, hey, we moved up again, and moved up again. It just makes it feel like it's all positive. That's how I see it anyways. But yeah, the Oilers, I think, belong there. Seattle is not going up there next. And then you have kind of the mix. So I'm going to put Nashville up here next. Nashville's gone on quite the run lately. I don't feel like Nashville, there's any reason for panic. There was reason for panic in Nashville not too long ago. I don't think it's there right now. I think Nashville's pretty good. And if they don't make the playoffs, they end up dropping here. I think for Nashville, it's either, yay, we made the playoffs, or, yeah, we get a draft pick. I feel like that the expectations have been set properly. Now, this is where it gets tough, because St. Louis, they've been very up and down. Video discussing that, absolutely. The Canucks, well, they're 4-6 in their last 10. There's still definitely some hype in the market, but it definitely has been muted. And we're now into the finger-pointing stage where it's all Tyler Myers' fault, really. When it's not all Tyler Myers' fault. But I'm going to put Minnesota next, and I'm going to explain that. Minnesota changed coaches, and since they changed coaches, perfect record. Coming into this game against Vancouver with a perfect record. I'm going to put Vancouver there. That one didn't want to move. I was like, I'm going to put Bob. I'm not pushing it at all. Apparently, it's not going to allow it. So what if I put Vancouver there, and I'll have them at the same level as St. Louis, where one night to the next, you never quite know what you're going to get. In Vancouver's case, they got off to a very good start, and it's kind of been a fallback since. St. Louis, it's really been all over the place. I'm going to put Calgary next. So Calgary below Vancouver. Calgary was on their way, and then they lost against Vancouver, and then they lose against Minnesota, and I do feel like for Calgary, they're in that weird space too, where they're not so far out that, selling becomes obvious if you're too far out of the playoffs. They're not that far out, but they're not close enough either where you can say, well, if they add a couple of pieces, I don't know if you're in that position either where they're going to add. So they're kind of in a no man's land, which leaves Seattle closest to the panic. So the panic, I would have Seattle as the closest in the West, based on the fact that last year They made the playoffs. This year, they look like a bit of a mess. I understand there's going to be Seattle fans too, though, that look at this team and say, hey, it's the third year. We don't expect Stanley Cups. I did say the other day, too, in a video that Vegas has been kind of spoiled. And what I meant by that was the fandom, I think the organization on some level, too, the fact that they've missed the playoffs once in their existence. And so, yeah, just the fact that this team's always been pretty darn good. It's not quite the adversity that most fan bases have gone through. And so for Seattle, they're going through the kind of adversity you see with new teams. Vegas has been the exception rather than the rule there. And I think what this shows as well, with Seattle having their struggles and Vegas and what they've been able to do, it shows just how smart George McPhee was in putting the team together and how well they managed to stay relevant, stay at the top or near the top for so long. And they got their Stanley Cup last season. So, yeah, I would say that's pretty decent panic index. You guys can let me know your thoughts. And again, I'm not going into as much detail as I often do with the power rankings, but I guess I can go through and say something really quick with each one. In that the Kings look like a contender, the Jets look like they're going to be dangerous. Arizona, to me, looks like they're for real. They should be a playoff team, but it's a very unpredictable run right now. I did see an article today, too, about how the parity in the NHL just makes everything a mess. As somebody who tries to run a power rankings, yeah. I don't even know why I said power in a weird way, but yeah. It does make it difficult. The Oilers, I've discussed the Oilers are kind of a wagon right now. Nashville kind of has some of that energy as well. Minnesota is getting towards wagon territory. If they can win tonight in Vancouver, they're there because they get back to NHL 500. The Canucks, if they lose tonight, they end up more in a panic side of things. It's a big game for Vancouver. St. Louis, the game last night, people were mad at the officiating, and I get why they were mad at the officiating, but also St. Louis had a bit of a meltdown there too. So there was the fact that there were the 8 power plays for Vegas, but also St. Louis was having trouble, right? Calgary, I can't put Calgary any higher than they are. I don't know how panicky people are. I think the trading of Zadorov has led to a lot of people saying, well, clearly they're going to sell. I don't know that's necessarily the case because Zadorov wanted out. They knew he wanted out. It's better to get him out of that locker room sooner rather than later. And for Seattle, as I've mentioned very, very recently in this video, tough go in year 3. And then in the East, you've got the Rangers playing absolutely fantastic hockey, coming off of a loss against the Ottawa Senators, but it's just one game there. They did get beaten by Buffalo too, but you're going to take your losses here and there. Generally, they've been excellent. Boston's been very good. As I've said with Boston too, they do have to play a very strategic game and keep things as close to perfect on their side as possible, but they do that pretty well. For Florida and Detroit, these are teams doing quite well. I think the fan base is probably pretty energized. As I said with Detroit, Patrick Kane night. New Jersey, going pretty well. Philadelphia, I don't think I said anything in regards to Philadelphia, but who had them as a potential playoff team this year? I didn't. I did think the return of Couturier and Atkinson could help. Did I think it would help this much? No. So Philadelphia might be in a position to buy at the deadline, which would be weird. Although reportedly Toronto's looking around at their defensemen, and Philadelphia knows that Toronto's interested in the defenseman. They're not going to make it cheap. Washington's been up and down the last couple of days, which is why I have them where I have them, but I don't think there's any panic there. Carolina and Tampa, at points over the last couple weeks, there's definitely been panic. I think if I was doing this the way I usually do the panic index board, Carolina would definitely be below the line and towards the panic face a little bit. For Ottawa, Ottawa's doing, the 500 duty so far. They haven't won enough to really solidify themselves as a playoff team, but they haven't lost so much either. They've taken themselves out of the race. Pittsburgh, the video I did earlier today gets into their power play, which is a big part of the problem. Also, the fact that it's an older team, so that's going to make things like there's going to be more pressure on them to turn things around. And then with the Islanders and Buffalo, not enough wins. So there you go. You guys are all set. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I just wanted to do Panic Index a little different today. Just a little bit of a different Panic Index than I normally do it. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And which team do you think has the most reason to be panicked? If I had to rank 1 through 5, I'd have to go Buffalo is probably the most reason to panic. I would have the Islanders. I would have at second. That loss against San Jose is tough. Seattle third. Pittsburgh fourth, and I'll say Calgary fifth. There you go, top 5. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.